Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another in our series, Understanding the Quran, in which we're looking at the interpretation of Surah Al-Mulk of the Quran. And in this segment, we'll be looking at the 24th verse and those following it. In it, Allah starts to speak about the resurrection, the time of the resurrection, and warns the believers not to forget this, and as well threatens the disbelievers with this reality. Allah then says in the 24th verse,
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. قل هو الذي ذرأكم في الأرض وإليه تحشرون.
Say, He is the one who scattered you in the earth, and you will be gathered before Him. Allah here stresses an issue of the diversity of human beings. Though we began from one pair, Adam and Eve, Allah had us scattered over the whole earth. Physical features, characteristics, etc. And had He wished, as He said in Surah Al-Ma'idah, the 5th chapter, verse 48, if Allah wished, He could have made you one nation. If He had wished, but it was not His wish. He had us scattered all over the earth in order that we may reflect in our diversity at the greatness of God. Allah says in the 49th chapter, known as Surah Al-Hujurat, verse 13, O humankind, indeed I have created you from a male and female, and made you into peoples and tribes to know each other, that you may know each other, to reflect on each other's differences, etc., and know ultimately that all of this came from God. Were it our efforts, when we create things, we tend to repeat, to be able to constantly create differences, that every product we create is completely different from every other product. We can't do this. We run out. We do not have the inventive ability to create at that scale. I mean, we know when we create cars look alike. And we may add a little feature here, add a little feature there. No, but in general, they're all looking alike. To be able to create each car different, completely different, major differences, internal as well as external differences. This we don't, technologically, we can't do this. So these are amongst the signs of Allah to us. It's not just only in human beings, we can see it in the whole world around us. As they say, no two snowflakes are alike. The amount of snow that falls around the world, yet no two snowflakes with the intricate designs that they're composed of are alike. No two leaves are alike, though they may appear similar in the trees. When you actually put them and look at the vein structure, etc., no two are alike. This is the greatness of Allah. In the design of the iris of the eye, no two are alike. Though there are so many billions of people on the earth, this diversity exists. Everyone is made differently. On one hand, we should reflect on the greatness of Allah. On the other hand, we should reflect, as Allah says, on the diversity which exists amongst us for the purpose of knowing our families and our tribes, for the obligations that are involved in it. Not for feelings or developing or promoting feelings of superiority, where you end up with tribalism or racism, etc. No, this is not the purpose. These differences that are there and similarities, we look at the similarities from the point of view of family responsibilities. Societies are built on family units. And as such, in Islamic society, the primary responsibility of taking care of individuals is on the family itself. The idea of old people's homes where, parents, once they get old, kids don't want them anymore, they leave them just to fend for themselves. So you have to create these old people's homes, you stick them in there with nurses who don't really care for them, and they become abused, etc., etc. This is not in keeping with Islamic society. When we see this appearing in a society, it means there's a breakdown taking place. Because old people, with a few exceptions, where there are no family members, due to one factor or another, calamity or whatever, an old person is left on their own, then the responsibility of the family members themselves. And the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, had said, learn enough about your lineages to know your blood relatives and to treat them accordingly. Knowledge of the family is important to protect the lineage, to avoid incest, and at the same time to fulfill one's obligations to them. It was the practice in Arabia before the coming of Islam that when Arabs adopted sons, they would give them their own names. This is common practice in the West today. However, Allah forbade this. Ibn Omar reported that after the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, freed Zayd ibn Haritha, who was a slave, he adopted him, and people used to refer to him as Zayd ibn Muhammad, or Zayd, the son of Muhammad, until the verse, "Uduhum li'abaihim fahu aqsatu inda Allah," was revealed. Call them by their fathers' names, it is more just to Allah. After that, by his own father's name. And the Prophet furthermore stressed that it is prohibited for one, this is following the change of the law, it is prohibited for one to give one's or attribute one's fatherhood to other than one's father. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith found in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, whoever knowingly attributes his fatherhood to someone other than his real father will be excluded from paradise. This is very, very severe. He further said on another occasion, whoever deliberately allows himself to be called the son of someone other than his father is guilty of disbelief. This is also found in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. These are very, very severe warnings, and people have taken this lightly. Unfortunately, when people convert to Islam, in ignorance, Muslims may tell them, you must get rid of this non-Muslim name you have, this. Not only change your given name, but change your family name. So they will take names, Ahmed, Muhammad, and things like this, but this is a mistake. This is an error. Oftentimes people question me, myself, asking, why do you keep, your name is Bilal Phillips. Bilal, we can understand, you're Muslim, but why Phillips? Why not get rid of it? Phillips is my family name. That's the name of my father and the family. So I'm not allowed to remove that name. I have to keep it, regardless of what it means. Its meaning is not bad anyway. It just means, horseman. But even if the meaning were bad, one is not allowed to remove one's family name. There's another mistake which is common amongst Muslims today, in that when they're putting names together, they're not following the system which the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had confirmed, the system whereby the person's first name is their given name, the name they've chosen or given by their parents. Third name, the name of their grandfather, following that system. People will just throw names together anyhow, compound names, maybe even having females having two female names, for example. If a woman has the name Fatima, Aisha, and then the family name, this indicates that her father was unknown, meaning that her mother perhaps, or likely, gave birth to her out of wedlock, product of fornication. So really, the female's name should be followed by her father's name immediately. And at the time of marriage, it is common in Western systems that when a man gets married to a woman, that the woman's family name is removed, is erased, and his family name is placed there. This is a product of the Roman legal system, where he put his name on his chariot, he put his name on his house, and he put his name on his wife. She was his possession. But from an Islamic perspective, this is abhorrent. The woman should continue to carry her own father's name, because the fact that she's married this man doesn't mean her genealogy has changed. In modern times it's become popular amongst movie stars and actresses, etc., that they keep their family names. But this is out of pride. This has nothing to do with principle and system, whereas Islam teaches that family names should not be changed. At the time of marriage, it is common in Western systems that when a man gets married to a woman, that the woman's family name is removed, is erased, and his family name is placed there. This is a product of the Roman. He put his name on everything. He put his name on his slave, he put his name on his chariot, he put his name on his house, and he put his name on his wife. She was his possession. But from an Islamic perspective, this is abhorrent. The woman should continue to carry her own father's name, because the fact that she's married this man doesn't mean her genealogy has changed. In modern times it's become popular amongst movie stars and actresses, etc., that they keep their family names. But this is out of pride. This has nothing to do with principle and system, whereas Islam teaches that family names should not be changed. And Allah stresses, in this verse, that it is He who spread people out, caused them to be scattered throughout the world, and it is He who will gather them, gathering them at the time of resurrection. This is for us to reflect. Belief in the resurrection of faith. It is also a critical point, because it is an essential principle for righteousness. If one believes that he or she will be resurrected and naturally judged, because resurrection is not for just the sake of resurrection, but for judgment, then one thinks of the consequence of his or her deeds. Human beings will reflect on where they're headed and reflect on the fact that whatever they do, they will meet. Whatever good they do will be in their favor, whatever evil they do will be against them. They will have to meet it again in the future. That will help to keep them conscious of righteousness and evil, and help to keep them on the straight path, help to strengthen their will to do what is right regardless. People in society often are good because everybody else is good, or it's convenient to be good. But when it's no longer convenient, we find them being bad, when everybody else is bad, or when being good will bring harm or a consequence which one doesn't like, of good which is just based on the things of this world. What is good for me? This is the materialist's view of good. It ultimately is without foundation, and it won't last. Some people say, well, we're good because we know good is good. What does that mean? You will be good as long as it's convenient. This is the reality. When good is no longer convenient, then bad is going to be good for you, right? It'll become a relative thing. What's good is really what's good for me. And of course this is evil. Ultimately this concept breeds evil, because the ends, which are good ends for myself, will justify whatever means I use to achieve those ends. That becomes a way of thinking, a way of life, an evil way. Whereas what we should be considering is that if we use evil means, no matter how the ends turn out, they're evil. Though they may appear good to us, ultimately they're evil in the sight of God. Measure of good is one which is done out of fear of God. Not fear of God in the sense that one fears a lion or a tiger, runs away from it, no. But fear of the displeasure of God, because one loves God and doesn't want to displease Him. As well as fear of the consequence of His displeasure. Hell. When a person does good on the basis of that, that good will be lasting good. The person will be good regardless of whether everybody around them is evil or not. It gives them a stability in life, a way. They have guidance here. They're not flipping and flopping, going in the wind blows. There's no good. No real good comes out of that life. So Allah calls us to reflect on the scattering and the gathering. Of course, for the disbeliever, when this is presented to him, he starts to question. So when is this thing going to happen? Allah says in the 25th verse,
وَيَقُولُونَ مَتَى هَذَا الْوَعْدُ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ.
They ask, when will this promised event take place, if you're telling the truth? This is the challenge the disbelievers put forth. When? Bring it. Bring this resurrection. And this has been said, in so many instances to the prophets before, whenever they came, warning that this is the same response of their people. Bring your punishment, because it can't be seen. Give us a time, let us know, when is it going to happen? And we have Allah, for example, saying in Surah Al-Jathiyah, this is the 45th Surah, verse 32, and when it is said, indeed Allah's promise is true, and there is no doubt about the coming of the hour, you responded, we do not know what the hour is. We think it is only an opinion. We do not believe in it. And again, we find their mockery mentioned in Surah Al-Qaf, the 50th chapter, verse 3. When we die and become dust, will we be resurrected? That is a far-fetched return. This is mockery of the concept of the gathering, the resurrection, and the judgment. But Allah goes on to say in this 26th verse,
قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا نَذِيرٌ مُبِينٌ.
say, knowledge of it is with Allah alone, and I am only an outspoken warner. Allah tells the Prophet, as well as the believers, may God's peace and blessing be upon him and upon them, that we don't have the right to try to set a date. No, people will challenge us and say, okay, when is it coming? Come on, let's know. Set it, point it out. In our eagerness to try to convince people, sometimes people try to set dates and say, well, it's happening soon, it's happening just now, You find cults built up around the end of the world. The end of the world is coming. You have this what they call the solar cult, where they believe the end of the world is coming, so they all committed suicide. Another one believing there was a flying saucer. The flying saucer. This belief of the end of the world coming, they want things to happen, this decision is going to take place now. No. It is not for us to establish that. This is with Allah. The knowledge of the hour is with Allah alone. And this is what Allah tells the Prophet and the believers to tell those who would challenge when is the hour going to be. In Surah Al-A'raf, the 7th chapter, verse 187, Allah says, when they ask you about the hour with regards to its appointed time, tell them, knowledge of it is with my Lord alone. None can reveal its time except He. Its burden is heavy in the heavens and the earth, and it will only come upon you suddenly. When they ask you as if you had good knowledge of it, tell them, knowledge of it is with Allah alone, but most humans don't realize it. This is the response. It is known only. Was asked in a very famous tradition known as the Hadith of Jibreel, where Angel Gabriel came in the form of a human being and sat before him and questioned him about Islam in front of his companions to encourage them to ask more about Islam. And he asked him, when is the hour? The Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, responded saying, the one who is asked knows no more than the one who's asking. I don't know any more than you know. But he went on to give some of the signs of the hour. And he mentioned that among those signs is that naked, barefoot, destitute herdsmen, desert Bedouin, would compete in the building of lofty, tall skyscrapers. He spoke of that 2,400 years ago. Something we should reflect on. And we'll continue to look